Y'all know what time it is. Y'all know who it is. Listen, it's Mr. KTU 101. So obviously it's time to do some talking here at lunchtime or whatever. I see my captain over there. She doing big things. Weak men and weak women is the topic. So I just invited Miss LaWanda so she can come and rock with me for a little while or whatever. And we can get this thing shaken. This is how we do. That's what's up. Okay. So let's see if we can get her added in here so that way we can have this conversation. This lunchtime conversation. Hopefully you guys are having a great month. You know, I know a lot of people hate money. LaWanda, can you hear me? That's how we do. That's what's up. Okay. So let's see if we can get her added in here so that way we can have this conversation. This lunchtime conversation. Hopefully you guys are having a great month. You know, I know a lot of people hate money. You know y'all know it's about to go down. I need y'all to share this because we about to get into the nitty gritty. Y'all know we about to get into the nitty gritty. I got the female antagonist in the building, the captain.
See, shots fired.
Listen, I put on my good gloves. I'm ready. I've been working out. I'm feeling good. I've been hydrating. You know what I'm saying? So
well, go ahead and get started. Let me while I share.
Okay, so weak men and weak women. So here's the thing, man. You know, first of all, when you start talking about the weakness of men and the weakness of women, it all depends on who you are as a person. Because to me, weakness is in the eyes of the beholder, based on where you're from, based on how how you were brought up in the world. So here's the thing. I know we're gonna have this in-depth conversation. So I just need y'all to come in. I need y'all to share because I want y'all to comment because we want to find out what exactly is a weak man, what exactly is a weak woman. Is it a person that don't take care of their kids? It's a person that don't have a job. Is it a person that don't have money in the bank? Is it a person that don't have credit? What makes you specifically weak? You know what I'm saying? And maybe it's all of the above. I mean, I don't know. So that's what we want to find out today in this lunchtime discussion, this lunchtime debate, because I'm ready.
Lunchtime debate. Okay.
Are you ready?
Okay. So what for you, what constitutes, what makes a man weak or what makes a woman weak? But for you, go ahead and start with a man because I want you to do some self-reflection. What makes a man weak?
I think a weak man is someone that's scared to have a conversation. You know what I'm saying? I mean, Natasha just said somebody with a lack of ambition, but I think somebody that's scared to have a conversation. When you know a hard conversation needs to be had and you ducking and dodging and doing all of this other stuff, I think that's what makes a weak man. Somebody that's scared to have the hard conversation, whether it's about a job, whether it's about relationships, whether it's about your children, somebody who's scared to sit down and actually say, I know there's an issue. I'm not ducking the issue. Let's sit down and have a conversation. That to me is a weak man. Bottom line, I don't care where you're from. I don't care if you are a street dude. I don't care if you are a professional guy. I think a man that's scared to have the hard conversation is a weak man, period, point blank.
Why would it be weak versus maybe they're insecure? Maybe they didn't learn the best coping skills or how to communicate. Why would you say weak? But first, let's define what the definition of weak is. That's lacking the power to perform physically demanding tasks. If you're speaking on something physical, what does physical have to do with their state of mind as far as them having a conversation?
Well, you got to understand. Okay. Well, you got to understand that, first of all, when you sit down toe to toe with somebody, that's your ability to articulate versus their ability to articulate. That's your factual experiences versus their factual experiences. So what?
That's cognitive. The ability to be able to speak. That's that goes with mental, but physical. When you define somebody as being weak, if you go by the book definition of what weak is, it's a physicality. It's not a mental state of mind. It's not the ability to communicate.
Well, I get the definition. My thing about it is when I sit down and I'm saying I'm getting ready to have a conversation and I know it's going to be an uncomfortable conversation because we love to say, let's have the hard conversation. Physically, you see what I'm saying? Physically, I'm positioning my body. I'm structuring my body to sit down so that way you can understand either I'm serious, I'm humble, I'm assertive. So physically, I'm positioning myself. So that's the only way I see physical. You see what I'm saying? Maybe my facial expressions, how I look at you. But I think that mental is the strong part here. Mental is the key word here. Because you got to be mentally, intact to have that hard conversation.
Yeah.
How many weak people, and that's why I said men, to me, should be able to have that conversation. If you can't have a conversation, I consider you a weak dude, period.
Well, okay, so when you speak on weak and somebody's inability or ability to have a conversation with another person, um, could that be your perception of how you feel the conversation should go? Like
I,
if you have a certain mentality, you have a certain strength, you
mhm.
one, you've been in the military, so you're more defined, you're more disciplined. Not everybody is like that. So
Right.
because you have the type of mentality that you have, do you expect every man to be as you are? And is that the
No,
reason why you would define a man
no.
as being?
See, here's the thing that sometimes people forget. Before people came into the military, a lot of them was from the suburbs, but a lot of them was from the projects too. Okay.
Mhm.
I had the best of both worlds. So let me put it like that. So that means I could talk to somebody from the streets, like I could talk to somebody from a boardroom or a CEO. So with that being said, I don't think that you need to have an abundance of education to be able to sit down and have an intellectual conversation. You understand what I'm saying?
Some
Because there's
people
a lot
wouldn't
of
disagree with
smart
that though.
drug dealers. You know, there's a
Yeah.
lot of smart dope dealers. So with that being said, I'm saying that regardless of whatever walk of life you come from and your education level, I'm saying the first commitment, the first step to having a conversation and not be considered weak is to sit down and know that you have an issue and to be able to talk about it. You see what I'm saying? To be able to sit down and say, we got an issue, we need to talk.
But why would you call it weak versus, like I said, like the inability to communicate? If you were never taught, like Natisha said, it's about training. You have to be trained up. If you were never taught how to communicate, if in your, and everyone has a backstory. I'm saying
Mm-hmm.
backstory, family
Yeah.
dynamic, how your parents behaved around you. If they never communicated and all they did was bicker back and forth, you weren't taught that. So when you get to be an adult and you're speaking to another adult and you've never
Right.
learned the basics of communicating, then how do you expect, or how can someone expect you to behave accordingly if they don't know? And
Okay,
why would
so
that be?
you make a good point. You make a good point, and you love to give me definition. So I'm about to bust you in the head with one. Okay, here we go. Check it. So communication, right? It's a message that you send, and it's a feedback that's received. Do you agree or disagree?
I agree with that.
Okay, cool. So my thing about it is this: if someone is not willing to sit down and to send a message, if they're not even really willing to sit, they know it's an issue, but they're too busy running around and ducking and dodging to sit down and actually send a message to receive the message to send feedback, then to me that makes you weak because you're scared to even get into the vicinity of that conversation.
I'm straddling the fence on that one, because
Okay.
just because you are describing something, just because you are interpreting that, you sometimes you have to get on other people's level. You have to meet them where they are. If you're speaking, say a person who use a lot of big words, conglomerate, tumultuous. If
Mm-hmm.
I'm not a reader, if I'm not intellectually sound like that, if I don't have that type of intelligence, what you're saying to me is gibberish. What you're saying to
Right.
me, it makes no sense. So I can't understand you. I'm not going to be receptive to what you have to
I
say.
agree with that. I agree with that. Here's the thing. Don't use no damn big words with me when we trying to have a simplistic conversation. Here's the thing.
Uh-huh.
I don't need to hit you with no big words. Let's have a simplistic conversation so we can identify what the problem is and get to some simplified solutions. So that's what I'm saying. Sometimes some people can speak over your head because they're so scared to come down to your level. So you got to be able to meet in the middle. So when we talk about what is a weak man is someone, first of all, not even they don't have the audacity, right? They don't have the gall, they don't have the guts to sit down and say, I understand that there's a situation. Let's talk, brother. Let's talk. If you're too busy trying to say, well, I'm not going to have that hard conversation, I'm not going to consider you to be a strong man, because if you can't have that conversation with me, guess what? You can't talk about black on black crime. You can't talk about police brutality. You too scared to have a little small conversation with me. I know you're not about to stand in front of the White House and protest because you're too scared. You see what I'm saying? You got to have somebody that's willing to have the hard conversation. But here's the thing: what makes a weak woman? Let's not forget y'all,
Yeah.
huh? Talk to
Let's
me.
not. Okay. One, And there are women that I think weakness is a state of mind. Weakness
Okay.
can be displayed in an action. If you are looking to go, not necessarily against the masses, but what you have to add to it is not going to a discussion, to a situation, has a negative connotation, a negative undertone to it. Since we're using that weak as the word, then I would say that would make a weak woman. Um, Someone who, in terms of children, if you're making it exceptionally difficult for that father to be a part of that child's life and it is detriment to the well-being of that child, I would say that you're weak. If I mean, like I said, it's a state of mind. Anything with a negative connotation is weak to me.
Okay.
So
Anything with a negative connotation.
if
Here's
it
my
has
thing. I think overall a weak woman is a woman that's not confident enough to be herself.
but can you
That's
say
what I
that
think.
that's weak because they lack confidence? Confidence, that's a
No,
learned
no, 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 no,
behavior.
no, no.
That is
No. I'm
not
not
something you're
saying
born with. Okay.
insecure. I'm saying here. Okay, so my thing about it is like this. I like to deal with people who have identified their strengths and weaknesses. Therefore,
Okay.
it's hard for someone else to come in and off the bat say you're weak at this, you're weak at this. Yeah, I know I'm weak at this, but I'm growing. You see what I'm
But
saying?
who's gonna
I
identify?
don't
Who's
like
gonna be
people
honest enough to identify?
who ride bandwagons though. I think
Yeah.
that's weak. I think that if you can't
Yeah.
stand on your own 2 feet, I think that's weak. I
But
think that's weak.
you still have to be taught those things. You're not born with the inept ability to stand for something because you will fall for it. You're not born like that. You have to be taught. You don't think that sometimes those are teachable moments? If you see that uh, one area of weakness doesn't describe the total. Okay, Hope says no, one area of weakness doesn't describe the total. Explain that a bit, Hope. But again, I feel like every moment is a teachable moment. You may be in one at one level. Other people are not necessarily going to meet your level. You don't think that is the time where you want to teach
See,
somebody? Let me
see
show
here,
you a different
and,
way of going about it.
and this is why me and Lawanda go head to head, y'all. This is why me and Lawanda go head to. I'm not saying everybody needs to be Mario. I'm saying that everybody needs to identify who they are. When you know who you are, it's hard for someone to come and break that down. You understand what I'm saying? When you
I'm
know that
agreeing
you're
with you.
confident and you're confident at certain things, it's hard for someone to come. Let's say LaWanda, she can articulate her ass off, right? She can do her thing. It's hard for Mario to come and say, you don't speak very well, LaWanda. When you know for a fact you do. So when you
You know,
identify
sometimes that doesn't matter. Sometimes that
but when you
doesn't matter.
identify with say it again, say it again.
Sometimes I don't think it. I don't care how much confidence you have. At the end of the day, it's like a need, an innate need to sometimes you need other people to validate you. And I say validate you, sometimes even as an adult, you want somebody to say you did a good job.
Mm-hmm.
You handled that perfectly. I'm not saying that you need somebody to stroke your ego, but sometimes even adults need to hear that they've done a good
I
job.
think I
So
think
it's
I think
not
I'm agree to
about
disagree though. I'm
okay.
agree to disagree with you. Because my thing about it is I don't think I need someone to validate me. I think that it
No
feels
one's
good
gonna
to get
ever need that.
validation.
No
And,
one is
and
gonna
I,
ever
I think
admit
that's the
that.
difference between men and women though. I don't think men need other people to validate them. I think it feels good. It's like yesterday when I was talking about the whole dads don't get a lot of kudos, but women do. I said it feels good to get that hey, good job, but we don't need it. We would like it, but we don't
It's
need it.
human. It's a human need. It's a human, and I think the more that people try to um, look at the surface analogy of what is needed and what is not needed, is where those lines get crossed. People don't want to admit to being insecure. I feel like everybody, lottie dottie, everybody has an insecurity. Everybody is going to
Yeah,
measure themselves and
yeah.
compare themselves to somebody else. But another person would say, "Well, damn, you not being able to speak, that means you're," I would say, insecurity versus weak. I don't think someone not being able to explain themselves or articulate well makes them weak. Just because they can't have a conversation, I don't feel like that makes somebody weak. I feel like maybe public speaking is not their strong suit. So why would you
Okay,
call
I
somebody
think
weak if they speak?
I think we might be kind of missing a mark on what I'm saying. I don't think because you can't articulate that makes you weak. I think if you're scared to have a conversation when there's an issue, that makes you weak. That was one. Two, I think that, yes, Marissa, I think that there are men who would like validation and they would like to be accepted. However, when you're a man and you're a woman, you identify who you are. So that's why when you walk into a boardroom or whether you walk to a street corner, you're confident enough to say, this is what I'm selling. I'm the product. I'm selling myself.
You can be confident all day, but
Yeah.
at the end of the day, you're looking for other people to accept what you're bringing. Even in your confidence, you can have all the confidence in the world, but there's going to be the underlying insecurity. You're always going to see, because if you're selling a product, even though you're confident in the product, you have to convince other people to be confident in that product enough to purchase that product. So your confidence doesn't matter as far as like you're saying that it matters. At the end of the day,
check this out. So I say this. Let's say I sell vacuum cleaners, right? I sell vacuum cleaners, and I'm confident. I knock on your door, boom, boom. What's the name of the vac? Hoovers? Okay. I don't use vacuum. Okay. Hoovers? Is it? Or no? Okay. So no, I'm selling vacuum cleaners. Okay. I'm selling vacuum cleaners. I got 15 vacuum cleaners in the car. I go door to door. I sell 10 vacuum cleaners, all except 5. I don't need you to self-validate and say, okay, well, oh, you did such a great job, you're such a salesman, because the product speaks for itself. I sold 10 vacuums. So that lets me know, okay, I'm doing a good job. That validates me, does it not?
Not necessarily. Sometimes people you done got on their nerve, and so they went ahead and accepted that damn Hoover because they wanted to get you out of there. And they knew they needed a vacuum, and they were too lazy to go. That doesn't mean you really did a good job. That just means, shit, let me just go ahead and buy this thing. I know I need a vacuum anyway.
Okay. I hear you.
No, but
I hear you. I go ahead.
It's just different perceptions of it. Keep going. Natisha says
no. I just feel like it's like this. If I'm selling a product, whether it's myself or whether it's something that you can purchase and take with you, at the end of the day, am I getting what it is that I came for? Am I getting the product sold? Am I getting what it is that I came for? Whether it was a job, whether it was a relationship, whether it was whatever it is that I feel like I need to be a part of, did I get accepted? I think that's the validation. I think that's the check. If I apply for a job and I get the job, then obviously they thought that whatever it is that I produced and I promoted was good. So that's the validation. I got the job.
But you see, when Natisha said, she said that doesn't mean he's doing a good job just because you sold so many Hoovers. That doesn't mean you did a good job. And then Brianne said, but that is his validation. Whatever it took for you to sell it, whatever it takes, like you said, is what I feel like I needed in order to do the job. It's what gave you your validation. But that doesn't mean that would make you strong or good or any of those adjectives that define what a person is. That's not what that means.
I think men and women are different though. I think men and women I think there are some men out there and they seek validation. Like you gotta say you like me. You gotta say whatever I'm doing is good. But I don't hang around those type of men. So you see what I'm saying? I hang around men that to me are confident, and when they walk into a building or wherever it is, church, post office, they bring who they are. They bring their star player with them. You understand what I'm saying? And they can sell themselves or sell a product. You see what I'm saying? I hang around a lot of confident women as well.
You can be confident. No one says that a person not confident, but when you're trying to define what makes a man or woman weak, which is what we're talking about, what defines them as weak, you can be the most confident weak person in the world. I don't think
that's a hell of a statement right there. You can be the most confident weak person in the world. That's a hell of a statement. I need you to break that down. Break that down for me.
It's in the eye of the beholder. Because say this, and I'm gonna use this inanimate object. Say this. It's made to be sturdy. It's supposed to get the job done or whatever. For me, it serves its purpose. But for this other person, hell, it doesn't mean anything. I mean, it really depends on your perception, the things that you value to determine what makes somebody weak or not. I don't think it's going to be different for each individual. I don't think you can really put a clear-cut definition on what makes a man weak. And I'll give you an example. Say you're in a marriage. Man, he has no job. He's unable to provide financially. But he's he's mowing the grass, he's taking out the garbage, he's cooking dinner. Some people may view that man as being weak because he's doing those domestic things. More than likely, they feel like women are the ones that's supposed to be doing the domestic things, not a man. A man is supposed to be the breadwinner, the provider. So if he's not providing for that family, he's not bringing in those finances, they would view that man as weak. Not all people think like that. To me, if you're helping out at all when you know those things need to be done, that you could be defined as strong. You can't
I
put a
think,
weak.
I was reading some of the comments or whatever, and they said, well, are we talking about weakness? Or are we talking about validation? So let me pull this in. Okay. Us, depending on what type of person you are, whether you're strong or whether you're weak, you need a certain level of validation. How many people agree with that? If you're a strong person, you don't need as much validation as a weak person. How many people agree with that? Yes or no?
So you're saying the level of validation, not necessarily whether you need
Right.
validation.
If you can, if you, okay, let's say we all came up with a baseline for what a strong person and a weak person was. I'm thinking that a strong person would need less validation versus a weak person. Is that a true statement? I'm trying to get everybody kind of in sync.
Okay. Agreed.
Okay.
Yes.
So a couple people say they agree. Okay, so let's rock out a little bit. So I'm saying this. I'm saying I'm not talking about education. I'm not talking about whether you come from the streets, whether you come from the suburbs. Nobody cares. We don't care. I'm saying that in reference to be defined as a strong man or a strong woman, when there's a situation, when there's something that needs to be said and done based on conversation between two people or a group of people, you are not afraid to have the hard conversation. That's what we're talking about. You're not afraid. Now, if you are afraid to have that conversation, then that, to me, makes you weak. That's where I'm at with it. LaWanda, what's up?
Crystal says you can't be confident and weak at the same time. I disagree with that. You can, because weakness, of course, is a state of mind, and it's different for each individual. What you may feel is a strong attribute or what gives you value, someone else may not feel that same way. So it's always going to be different. So yes, you can be confident and weak at the same damn time. She says you one or the other. Weakness is a mindset showing self-esteem and self-confident issues. A person with a strong mindset and is confident has, let me see, has a sense of self and has a strong mindset. Again, with the confidence thing, some people are confident they probably shouldn't be, but that's for them to decide. That's not for me to decide. Some people are may be viewed as weak, and they're not necessarily weak. They just have made a different decision than you did. Why would that make somebody weak? Because they didn't behave the way that you felt like they should behave. Ben Antonio said, let me see, trying to prove your strength to anyone makes you weak. Everybody tries to prove. It's just something that happens.
I think every day, whether we know it or not, we're proving whether we're strong or we're weak.
Yeah.
I think every day we're proving, every conversation, every step we take, every time that we interact with a person, we send off a message.
Yeah.
We send a message, whether we're confident, whether we're weak, whether we're happy, whether we're sad, we're sending off a message, whether we say it verbally or not. So the thing about it is, based on the topic that we're having right now, if y'all just tuning in or whatever, weak men and women, you know what I'm saying? And right now we're kind of trying to break down and decide what makes you weak and what makes you strong, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So really we're coming up to this synopsis of, you know, if you're scared to have a conversation and you know a conversation needs to be had, then that kind of sort of makes you weak. So what are some other things that would make a woman or a man weak? So I need the captain to come on in here, you know what I'm saying, and talk to me real quick in reference to what would make a man or a woman weak? What are some other things?
Okay, for one, the inability to be receptive of what's being said. Because I notice a lot of times the person who speaks the loudest feels like they have the utmost confidence, feel like they're strong because they speak the loudest, but they're not necessarily saying anything. So if we're going to bring weakness, sometimes people will speak loud or say a lot because they're hiding behind an insecurity. So they feel like if they speak a certain way, if they act a certain way, if they treat other people a certain way, then people are going to view them as being strong. What's that saying? squeakiest wheel gets the oil. You ever heard of that saying?
Yeah.
The squeakiest wheel gets the oil. But when I see a person like that, I'm feeling like they're compensating for something else. They're compensating for they could have went through abuse, and like I said, everyone has a backstory. You don't know what that person has been through. And to me, when I'm not saying you're not confident. What I'm saying is people put on body armor. They take a defensive stance so that whatever they're feeling inside, that sadness, that hurt, that pain, if I act a certain way, no one will see that. No one will see that I'm really weak. I think that people put on facades, which in turn to me would make them weak, because why can't you just be who you are? If someone else decides that you're weak, that's on them. That's not on you. The only person that you can really pay attention to and is yourself. At the end of the day, in terms of what makes a person weak, what makes a person strong, it's always going to be, like they said, in the eye of the beholder.
So I get your point, definitely. I'm reading some of the comments. Farissa says, is that weakness or insecurity? What would you say? What you just described? Is that weakness or
I've been saying that's insecurity, and people will look at it as being weak. But like I said, it's different definitions of what weakness is. An example, I'm dark skinned. You know, sometimes dark skin is in, sometimes it's out. I may feel insecure about that because I was bullied about that. Some people may say that's weak. You should have grown out of that. You should have a strong backbone. Some people would say that's weak because of that. But you don't know what the struggle is. So how can you tell me what affects me is weak just because you can't identify or you can't relate to that?
Okay, so it's two things I want to address. First of all, I like the last thing that you just said. How can someone tell you what affects you is weak if you respond a certain type of way? You're right, because everyone's been through different life experiences, and I get that. Some people have went through some stuff that has altered their mental and their perception on how things are. So I definitely agree. Here's the second thing. You know what? It kind of burns me up inside when people say sometimes the loudest person in the room, or sometimes the person that talks a lot, they're not as confident, or they're not they're not who they say they are. And sometimes they goddamn are. Let's develop some stuff. Let's develop. My thing about it is this: when you're accustomed to being in certain situations, let's say you're accustomed to working under pressure. You're accustomed to working under pressure. You thrive in that type of situation where others don't. Some people may look at you like, oh, well, this person thinks they know X, Y, and Z. When really at the end of the day, if it really all lines up, then obviously they know what they're talking about. I think a lot of people, if they don't have the strength that other people have, the weakness or the insecurity that sits there is, I wish I could do that. But if I can't do that, then what I'm going to do is I'm going to bring you down a couple notches. Let's talk about it.
Well, that just sounds like you've learned, you've trained, you've been conditioned. That's a conditioned response. You've been in situations to where you've had to perform a certain way. That still doesn't define you as being strong or weak. That just say you've learned, you've trained. It's like getting an education.
Okay, so here's the thing. For everybody that likes sports, we're going to use football as an analogy. If you are a wide receiver, right, it's fourth and long. So you know we're going to throw the ball, right? We're going to throw the ball. If you are going, okay, now you got two receivers, right? Left side, right side. Okay. Now your left side never comes through, never catches the ball, right? But you know if you go to your right side, it's a 90% chance this person's going to catch the ball. Okay. Now, are we as an audience who's able to see this, are we able to say the left side, oh, you weak? You
no,
weak. Can we factually say that person is weak?
We can only say that person needs more training. That's a fact. Them being weak
needs more training. Okay, I got it. So I see you trying to sugarcoat this. I thought we were gonna do the head-to-head thing. I was ready. Okay, that person needs more training. Cool. So let's say this. Let's say we go to the right side where that person is 90% sure to catch this ball. Will we consider them strong, or will we consider them trained up?
I would consider them trained up.
Cool. My thing is this. if you say 90% of the time, the person that we consider that's trained up in a situation, if they come through in the clutch, you strong. That's my thing. You strong. There's no matter how much you say,
It's
that
the
person's
verbiage.
coming through.
It's the verbiage that's used. I think it's the context of using strong versus weak that I think is my hiccup with it. I think sometimes when we say the words, the context that we're using it in doesn't necessarily apply. Like the analogy that you gave, when I'm looking at one side being able to catch the ball versus the other side, that means he has a stronger skill set if he's able to catch the ball. That doesn't mean that he's stronger as far as whatever context we're using strength in. That doesn't mean this person who has the inability to catch the ball. And let me change that. It doesn't mean that he doesn't have the ability to do it. He just needs to be trained better. He needs to practice more. It does not mean that he's weak. Maybe that's not the right position for him. Maybe he needs to be moved. It's different perceptions.
Okay. So I see what you kind of doing, but I'm gonna get you fired up real quick. I'm gonna get you fired up. Use the same analogy.
Okay, go ahead.
Go ahead.
Okay, so Hope says if you're a weak receiver, i.e. football, it doesn't mean you're a weak man, which is what I'm saying. You can't make an overall blanket statement, Mario.
I can make blanket statements because this how it applies. This how it applies. My thing about it is it's like this. What I'm doing is I'm using something that everybody knows as a common ground. But my thing about it is let's apply it to life. Let's apply it to life. If you have a man that doesn't take care of his responsibilities, like he's known for not taking care of his responsibilities, his children, his house, his car, his job, he's not known versus somebody that is 90% known for taking care of their responsibilities. Does that make you weak or strong? Now mess with me.
Okay, when you're trying to define the roles of a household, like you said, you say all the time that you have to have those hard conversations and you got to take some responsibility for that. You need to know what type of man you're getting in bed with, for lack of another analogy, before that. So if he's not taking care of his children, if he's not taking care of his responsibilities as a man that's supposed to be the provider, that's a different conversation. That doesn't mean he's weak. That may mean that he was never taught. He doesn't know how to be a man, know how to play his position, know how to play that role. There is an area where he can learn to do that, but it's what you're willing to accept. If you feel like that's weak for you, then you need to kind of switch it up. Maybe y'all need to define the roles and what role he should play. But does that make him weak? And if we're going by the book definition of weak, it's the physicality. Is he capable of taking care of the kids? Is he capable of taking care of the house? Does he have the ability to that? Is he handicapped? Is he quadriplegic? You know what I'm saying? If those things are not the case, then we're looking at value here.
You broke down some things and you said roles, which that's a good word to use. My thing about it is in life, whether it's a sport, whether it's a job, whether it's a relationship, we all have roles. We all have roles. And then based on what we consider to be efficient in those roles is how we define whether you're weak or strong in those roles. Are we in agreement or are we not in agreement?
It's the verbiage. What if we change the verbiage and we didn't say weak or strong? We said, what'd somebody say? He's maybe deficient in that area. He had, there's room for improvement. Why do we have to say weak?
Okay, so if you go in from, let's say, an overall feelings type of situation, you just need more training versus, you suck. Regardless of what verbiage you use, the outline, the meaning still exists. Now we can sugarcoat it or we can talk the real. And I get it. You say, I'm just saying, you need more training. That's why you go to 7-Eleven and you say, oh, well, you go to McDonald's and you say, let me get this, this, and this, and this. And the person, they make your sandwich all sloppy or whatever. It's okay, you messed up my sandwich. You just need more training.
Clearly it's not going to be like that. But to me, I do give people a chance to remake the damn sandwich. Maybe they weren't trained. We're going to use McDonald's. The employee is a representation of that leadership. If that leadership sucks, if the leadership is not training that crew correctly, that employee correctly, then the product that you receive, the quality of the product is going to be because of that leadership. That means the training was never done. So of course you're gonna get a bad product. So do you not, is that not room to a teachable moment? Can you not use it as that versus saying, oh, this person's weak because they didn't make my sandwich correctly?
I think, okay, so here's the thing. I think that you can use verbiage that make people feel comfortable. You can do that. You can use verbiage that make people still feel good about not being at the tier that you want them to be at or expected to be at. I got it. But sometimes you can be brutally honest and say, you just suck. You suck at relationship. You suck at success. You suck at conversation. You suck. I'm not going to say you need more training. You need more experience. And that may be one of your weaknesses, that you can't communicate.
But that's what it
Say again?
is. If you really think about it, that's what it is. If you are not doing something well by somebody else's standard, that doesn't mean you're weak. That just means you need to learn a better way to do it. We all
So
have weaknesses. We all have things that we're not as good at. That doesn't mean we're weak necessarily. That just means we need to do better, learn a different way to do it. One that is for us and not necessarily how someone else would do it. I think when people use words like weak or strength, it's per their definition of what makes somebody weak or strong. That doesn't mean that that's reality. That doesn't mean that that's factual. That just means that that's your perception, no matter what verbiage you use.
I think that you got to understand, when we talk about weakness and strength in men and women, if the majority say you weak, right? No matter how confident you say you are, why is what you're displaying or saying considered to be weak? Right? No one says, oh, Beyonce is a weak singer. The majority of people say, hey, you know what? She's a good performer and a singer. Because we've accepted that. A lot of people say, you know what? You're a good performer. You're a good singer. A lot of people have applauded the fact that she's good. You understand what I'm saying? If you're in a relationship and you're dealing with somebody and you say, well, you're weak, or you need more training at this relationship. If the majority say you're strong, then you're strong. If the majority say you weak, then you weak. I mean, to me, it's not no gray area. If the majority say it, then it's probably true.
No, that's not accurate.
You don't believe that?
No.
Okay, well, break down why you don't believe it.
And let me give, analogy. Beauty. What makes someone beautiful? What do they show on TV, in magazines, on these videos, at what defines a woman as beautiful? What makes a woman sexually appealing? It's going to be in the eye of the beholder, because everyone has their preferences of the things that they like. Does that necessarily mean that's beauty to everybody? No, it doesn't. Some people may like juicy women. Some people may like skinny women. It's going to depend on each individual person. There's no clear-cut definition of what beauty is, because all of us are so diverse and different that it's going to change. You can't put or think that you agreeing that somebody can sing or you agreeing that somebody is beautiful on everybody, because they're not necessarily going to agree with that. You're gonna have your difference of opinion in that regard.
Okay, so we talk about, okay, when we say the majority of people making a statement, the majority of people making a statement about a man's weakness or a man's strength. If the majority say this man is weak, does that make the statement true?
No.
Okay.
So you're saying because more people say somebody is weak, then that mean that person's weak because more people said so?
Well, okay. So here's the thing, because I'm gonna be raw with it. You know what I'm saying? Here's the thing. Don't women do that all the time, though?
Don't women do what?
Don't women do that all the time? If one woman says, oh, this man is X, Y, and Z, and the rest of the women hear it, and they say, yeah, girl, you're right, does that make the man X, Y, and Z? Does that make the man weak?
No, that means they have their different experiences with that man. Sometimes people will listen to what someone else says and they haven't taken the time to get to know this man to even come to their own conclusion. Why would you take what the hell somebody else said to define this person? You didn't even have
that's how life works, though.
That's how life works. It may be like that doesn't mean it's correct. Just because you've been doing the same thing repeatedly for many years, so you think that
Mhm.
it's right, that does not make it right. That does not mean it's politically correct. That just means it's correct to that person. That doesn't mean that's fact. That doesn't mean it's set in stone. That's just your interpretation. And the fact, I
Mm.
would say, if we're going to use the word weak, I would say somebody that listens to another person versus trying to get to know this person, you're weak. That would be weak to me.
Farissa says the majority of popular opinion would take us back to the word validation. You need everyone else to agree with you in order to believe it is good or right. I agree with that. Definitely. I definitely agree with that. Um, Mario, what about Brienne said? Let me see something. What she said.
Okay, yeah, I'm trying.
Most of the world has a distaste towards black people. So does that mean black people are dis? You know what?
Exactly. Exactly.
That's a good point. That's a good point. You know what? I think that I think black people are to blame. I know y'all ain't gonna like this shit. You're not gonna like
See what
this,
I'm saying?
but that's okay because I like to be the bad guy. I like to be the
Go
bad guy.
ahead. Speak on it.
I think black people are to blame. You know why? Because I would rather take a woman who is naturally beautiful over any one of them females that I've ever seen. This is facts. Over any one of them females that I've ever seen on a reality TV show. A natural female who don't mind jumping in the pool and getting her hair wet. A natural female who can say, let's go to the hot dog stand. A natural female say, I don't need to take 3 hours to get ready for us to go to a movie. Society, I say we have embraced a culture of you gotta look a certain type of way in order to say that you're of somebody, you somebody, and that's the problem. And I think that that's a weakness for us that a lot of people go with the status quo of what society says we should love or what society says we should be. There's not a lot of individuals out there. What do you think about that, LaWanda?
If you're influenced by certain things, especially when it's being forced down your throat, commercials and movies and videos and textbooks and even conversations with other people, how they've defined what beauty is supposed to be, what beauty is supposed to look like. Even on Facebook, you see the constant scrolling of the skinny women with the big boobs and the big butt. You're aspiring to be this supermodel when that's not even a
Mm-hmm.
realistic depiction of what the average woman looks like. The average woman is a size 16. Let's start there for one. What was your question? I just totally lost my train of thought.
Okay, so here's the thing. I'm asking, is it African American people's fault for how society sees African Americans?
That's like saying, is it African American people's fault for being black?
No,
That
no.
you
How,
can't.
no, no, no. Is it African American? Is it black people's fault for how the rest of the world sees African Americans? Yes or
No,
no? Like,
no,
no. I don't agree with
no.
that. I don't
Well,
agree
why
with
don't
that.
you?
I don't
Why
agree with
would
that
it
because
be?
I'm gonna go shoot. Hold on. I'm gonna go shoot. I'm gonna go shoot my brother because he's wearing a certain color. I'm gonna go buy me some rims, a chain, and start rapping. You know what I'm saying? Before I teach my kids how to be an entrepreneur. I'm just saying this is what black people do. This is what
Well,
black people do.
what that
I'm gonna
sounds
die.
like.
I'm gonna die and leave my kids with no life insurance.
What? Listen, if
Talk to
you're
me.
again, if you were never taught those things back in the day, that wasn't what was being taught. What was being taught is how to survive when you're out here being killed. That's what was
Survive
being
what?
taught.
Survive what?
Survive. Okay,
It's
let's go
black
back.
people ain't never struggled. I know people right here in Killeen ain't never had to worry about their lights being
That
cut off. Never say what?
okay, they may not have to have worried about that. That doesn't mean that they speak for the masses. That doesn't
I
mean
got you, but
everybody.
see, you give me a yes or no. You see, I
I
told
already
you,
said.
it's put your gloves
I
on,
already said
LaWanda.
no.
Put your gloves on, LaWanda.
I already said no, and that's asinine. That is so crazy to me. To have that analogy, and it sounds like when a black person get killed by a white cop. Well, what about black on black crime? To me, that
What
makes
about it?
no sense. I never. And the thing is,
There's more. We
it
talking
doesn't.
statistics.
But
There's more black on
that's
black
like
crime than police brutality against black
because
people.
they're showing because the media is showing you what they want to see. They want to build that
I'm
narrative
from them
for you
cities. I'm from them cities.
instead of you researching. you're just gonna just okay, say Chicago for instance. That may be what's happening there. That's what's being shown. You when a white person kills somebody and they have them on news, they don't even say the person's name. They don't even say what their nationality was. But anytime a black person show, this is the narrative that they're going to show you because that's how they want you to view yourself. They want people to be afraid of you, intimidated by you, thinking that you're the aggressive type. That's not black people's fault that we are viewed that. Yes, no, hold on.
Okay,
yes,
great.
Yes, you do have black people who act less than desirable, who commit crimes, just like you have white people who commit crimes, Hispanic people that commit crimes, Asian people, which I've never seen that happen.
I'm not talking about crimes. I'm talking about black on black. I'm talking about.
But you said
in
shooting.
What neighborhoods?
You said not
in what? Okay, so you're telling me right now. You're telling me right now that you would take your children, your grandchildren, right now, and raise them in a neighborhood you know that's known for violence, where black people are. Yes,
you're asking me. You're asking me. I wouldn't, and I haven't. I wouldn't, and I haven't.
Oh, wait. When you say ghettos, in the United States of America, right? How many people are thinking white ghetto, Mexican ghetto? You thinking black ghetto?
Again, it's the narrative that has been painted for you. Why do the ghettos exist?
It's
what
real.
Do you think
That's real life. That's real life. When you say ghetto, you're talking about black people. You're not talking about Mexicans.
Okay.
Okay, so stay with me. When you think about ghettos, right? You think about ghettos, you don't think predominantly Mexican, you don't think predominantly trailer park, you think about black people. So with that being said, based on all of the black people that live in these ghettos and the black on black crime, that's the narrative that's being sold. It's not fake. What we do is we publicize it and we say, well, being from the ghetto gives you stripes. Being from the ghetto makes you hard.
Wait, who's glorifying it like that? Videos. And these are
how you think these? Okay, when you click on a video for a company, you're bringing revenue to that company. When you go to a movie theater and you buy a ticket, you're bringing revenue to the people that made that movie. So if they're glorifying black on black crime, they're glorifying men dressing up like women to make us laugh. They're glorifying these things, and we're supporting them things. So when I say black people is the leading cause of the issues that we have against black people, you goddamn right. I believe that. I definitely believe that. White people can do but so much. White people can do but so much.
If this is, okay, if you force, just say a dog, you keep kicking a dog, you put them in undesirable conditions where there's famine, they're hungry, they're thirsty, they're constantly having to fight for survival. How do you think they're going to come out being productive members of society when you force them to be a certain way? But then you want to say,
I don't want to hear that shit. I don't want to hear that shit.
That's crazy to me.
Listen, Lawanda. Listen. If you ever get a chance to talk to any one of my siblings, I literally was in a projects where I didn't have no food in the house. I was sharing clothing. I was fighting every day. I'm seeing people get shot. I'm seeing people get stabbed. With that being said, if you think that I would want to say, well, let me just go back there and raise my kids. No. You can get out if you want to get out. There's a better way, because here's the thing. We got this thing called books. We got this thing called education. So you're getting exposed to other things. A lot of people choose to live that life because they're too scared. Remember we said earlier to have the hard conversation? That's the hard conversation. How the hell do I get out this predicament? That, to me, that makes you weak. If you're scared to get out of your situation and you know it's a bad situation, that makes you weak.
What the hell, Mario?
I want you to focus on what I'm saying.
I'm so perplexed by what you're saying, and I want you to go ahead and explain that a little bit more. You said
I want to read these comments because Farissa said, shaking my head, you have been conditioned. Why do you think of black people when you think of ghettos? Because white folks want you.
That's the narrative.
Stop. Minister Society, Boys in the Hood, Juice. Wait. When you think of Goodfellas, when you think of the Bronx movie, you don't see white people in the capacity of black people. However, the capacity that's being showcased in these movies are real. And they outnumber any white ghetto that you think about, any Mexican ghetto that you think about. Come on now. Don't argue for the sake of arguing. Don't argue
if
for
you
the sake of
already,
arguing.
if you want to criminalize a race, you're going to
Criminalize.
show that criminalize a race.
I know what the word is.
You're
Thanks.
going to
Appreciate it.
show them, you're going to show them depictions of criminals, of ghettos, of slums, of all of the negative things to validate how we are being viewed as a race. So you're saying because we live in a ghetto that makes us bad people, that makes us weak people.
No, I didn't say
You're
that.
saying,
I'm
no,
saying
saying,
that. I'm saying that when you think of
like.
ghetto, you think of black people, and you don't have. When you think of ghetto, you don't think of white people. If somebody say, "Hey, that's a ghetto person over there," you're not looking to see a white. You're not going to look to see if there's a white person. You're not going to look to see if there's a Mexican person. The first thing you're going to think about is what? A black person.
If that is all that you see, if that's all the news is broadcasting, if that's all, anytime a white person, a lot of times a white person brings up a black person, it has a negative connotation. There's a stereotype, there's a stigma. Black people are this way. So that's saying like, you're black, so that means you're a felon. You commit crimes. Like, what the fuck? What point, Natisha, what point is Mario making?
I'm making a whole lot of points. I think what you're trying to do is, and this is what I love. I love it. What you want to do is you want to ride you and try to team up with whoever. I don't have to team up with nobody. This is my thing. I'm telling you right now. I'm telling you right now, ladies and gentlemen, if you allow your kids to watch videos, listen to lyrics that don't glorify anything positive, and you think that's not going to affect your child somewhere down the road, then shame on you. If you don't think that taking your child to see something or to a concert or whatever case be, where it's like girls twerking or whatever case be, you got to look like an Instagram model. My thing about it is, black people, if they control how they maneuver and they control how they spend their dollar, they control how they spend a dollar, they can take some power back. But we don't do that. What we do is we buy into the stereotypes that we see. Argue with me now. Let's go. We buy into the stereotypes that we see. But they making these commercials. They making Jordans for what? If we stop wearing Jordans, what's gonna happen? We don't wear Jordans no more. We don't drink this type of liquor. We don't go to those type of clubs. We don't support those type of music. We don't look at those type of movies. But we do. So obviously, we're helping to amplify and to spread the word that yes, we are this way. How many people right now have signed any petition to get the reality TV shows off of the station? That shows black women don't know how to talk and communicate. That shows black men don't know how to have a relationship. Don't mess with me, people. Don't mess with me, people. Come on.
I get
you don't see
it.
no petitions on Facebook like that.
But when you say that it's black people's fault, you gotta. Okay, let's do a backstory on that. What would make that black person's fault? Were they taught to, okay, if you see something negative, turn it off? If this from generations even past, where did it start, the breakdown for what your children are exposed to? Where did that begin? Where did that start to end up like it is now?
Okay. So we did a show, LaWanda, on That's What's Up. Y'all need to tune in every Sunday 5, you know what I'm saying? Set it off Sundays. In reference to which generation did it better? You see what I'm saying? So with that being said, we know we're not talking about baby boomers. That's something else, whatever case be.
Yeah.
The millennials, we start kind of talking about, you know what I'm saying, the social media crave and all that good stuff or whatever case be. So let's talk about the people that's in between the ages of, let's say, mid 30s to 45, I want to say. Okay.
Ooh, that's close.
I truly believe that's when we kind of took a shift, right? I believe that's when we took a shift, because my whole thing about it is if I have 2 daughters right now. My thing about it is I could sit down and I can sit in front of my daughters and say, like you was talking about LaWanda yesterday when we talked about the Luke video. I can sit down and I could glorify this Luke video or whatever. My daughters are going to think that's acceptable.
Yep.
My daughters are going to say, yeah, I want to be like that because my dad like it, so I should like it. You see what I'm saying? My thing about it is you got to teach right and wrong, and you got to know wrong from right. But it's a lot of people, it's like this. We don't want to be parents. We want to be friends with our kids. We want to be their besties instead of trying to be their parent. And that's what I see a lot of times. You see women talking about, girl, you wearing that to the club? Oh, da, da, da. Like it's women partying with their kids at the club.
But if they were never taught, how do you think they're going to teach their child what they were never taught?
Here's my thing. I think as an adult, we go through a stage of what right and wrong is. And my thing about it is a lot of times, you know, I think we get stuck on trying to be accepted versus trying to be right. We try to be like, okay, what's cool? What's going to make us cool? What's going to get us the most likes versus trying to be right. I don't want my kids to say their role models was a musician or somebody, a movie star or whatever the case be. I want my kids to say I was their role model. So I need to do everything that I can to make sure that they understand, well, this is me being a role model, and hopefully you can accept it. But I think what's being glorified today is not what was glorified back then and there. You know, back in the day or whatever. You know, I just think you got more kids talking about what Drake got going on, you know what I'm saying, than their parents got going on. I mean, I'm just saying. Yeah. So I don't know. You got a lot of guys, like a lot of kids, teenagers, when they went back to school, did you see? Oh, wait, I guess you didn't see. You know how many kids out here wearing skinny leg jeans? Like back in my day growing up, shit, I'm telling you right now, you wouldn't have worn those skinny leg jeans around where I'm from. But now it's acceptable. Now it's cool.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? I mean, I need room for my shit. I'm just saying.
I grew up a little differently. And I grew up in the foster care system, you know, where a lot of bad things happened to me in that time. I had an older foster mom. She was in her 60s when I was a teenager. So I wasn't exposed to a lot of things that I guess the average person would be exposed to. I have a older kind of mentality. And so when I had my kids, because there were lessons I was never taught, the things that we see now, I didn't see those things. Of course, you did have teenage moms, which didn't make any sense to me, but hey. So when I started having kids, I had mine at 19, 20, 21. That's still not what I wasn't taught that. I tried to be strict on my children. I didn't want them to live in certain neighborhoods, ghettos or whatever. I wanted them to have the things that they needed, and if I can afford the things that they wanted. I didn't get that help. But my daughter had her first baby at 19. Does that mean that I did something wrong? Even though I was being strict with them, sometimes you can be so strict, and when that child finally becomes of age, they start to rebel. That doesn't mean you failed as a parent. That just means that child is going to do whatever the hell
I agree with that.
Do. But for me, I internalized that. Like, I questioned my parenting because I'm like, damn, I tried to teach you a different way. I tried to take you out of neighborhoods where you would be susceptible to having kids at an early age.
Okay. So I wanna give you kudos real quick, LaWanda. Let me give you a kudos real quick. Check this out. And I don't always give you kudos, so here we go. Check this out. If you decided that you wanted to take your kids out of an environment that you didn't feel like they would grow, they would ascend to greatness, and you said, I'm gonna do what I need to do to put them in a better position. To me, that says a lot about you as a person in reference to parenting. My thing about it is you hit something on the head when you said at some point in time, you could be super strict on your kids and they rebel. Ladies and gentlemen, I need y'all to make sure y'all listen, and I need to make sure y'all share this with them. And I'm reading your comments too, so we're going to get to those too. Yeah. You cannot be super hard on your kids. Oh, well, you can't watch TV, you know what I'm saying, on the weekdays. You only can do. My whole thing about it is like this. Ladies and gentlemen, you can push a kid so past greatness, it's ridiculous. You can push a kid so past greatness. If you don't allow a kid to have a childhood, you're going to ruin them. You're going to ruin them. You're going to ruin them.
But you still got to look at the backstory of the people. I didn't have a childhood. And so when I had kids at a young age, when you said a lot of times parents are trying to be a friend to their children instead of the parent, if you're having kids young, how are you going to be a parent? You don't know how to be a parent. They can write as many books as they want to give you a blueprint of how it should be, how things should go, how your kids should develop. But it's going to be different in your own situation. But so people can't judge what you do in your situation because it's yours. What else did you say? Said 100. Eugene said 100% responsibility. I'm going to take responsibility for, and that's why I say I do blame myself for my daughter getting pregnant at 19. Somebody else said, what did you do to stop the cycle? for me, by being strict on my children, to me, I was breaking the cycle, in my opinion. But for someone else, that may not be breaking the cycle. So there's really no right or wrong answer when you're doing things for the good of your household.
Well, you said it though. You said it. You said instead of staying in the environment that you was, you decided to take your kids out that environment. Once
It
you
didn't change
remove that
anything.
type of chaos, huh?
It didn't change. It didn't change anything. She followed exactly in my footsteps of having kids at a young age.
But again, hold on. What did you do? You did something. You did something so that way you can impede on the normality of, okay, you're in the ghetto, so you got to be pregnant. Da, da, da. You took her out. My thing about it is we can't be with our kids 24/7, and kids are going to have to make a decision. But I will say this. That's why I tell people they have to have positive people in their circle to help with the impact on being a role model. When you have positive men and women in your circle, it creates this fortress. It creates this like, wow, you know what I'm saying? Like you got Miss Niecy. Let's say you got Miss Niecy. Shout out to Miss Niecy. Miss Niecy said, I think one of her young kids or her grandchildren has a yogurt business. And they're only like, you know, they're at a young age. So say Miss Niecy's in my circle. That's somebody positive. Say I got my brother Eugene who's getting ready to support the boom in October. You know, he's an entrepreneur. You know what I'm saying? I got my girl Melissa on here or whatever. She has her own business. So I got people that's positive in my circle. So when I bring my child around them, guess what? I give them a better outlet. They may not can talk to me, but they might can talk to one of them. You see what I'm saying? But I know that one of them is somebody positive. So I'm not worried about a lot of negativity in my circle. So not only do I increase the shelter, not only do I increase better living, but I also increase the people that they surround themselves with. And I associate myself with. I think that's the problem. When you talk about weak men and weak women, that's the problem. We associate ourselves with weak people.
But do you think it's because they can identify with this person that is their role model, like rappers or any celebrity? It's because they can identify with something this person has been through or the way that this person looks. What do you think it is that makes them see these people as role models?
It's exciting. It's exciting. It's fun. But see, here's the thing. Learning about how to run a business, learning about how to save your money, learning about taking trips and learning about building a family, learning about how to have sex. Certain things are fun. And if you are not the person, if me and you, Lawanda, are not the person to teach our kids how to have fun in those successful things, we owe it to ourselves to position people around our children that can help them, to teach them, to let them have fun. I didn't know being an entrepreneur was so fun and so cool. I didn't know being a boss, really being a boss, was so cool. And I think that's the problem. We don't think outside the box a lot of times as parents.
Yeah.
So I think that creates this. Go ahead.
Outside of the box. When you say thinking outside of the box as parents, what do you mean by that?
I think that we've grown accustomed to saying that as long as we provide the basics, we're good parents. As long as we provide the basics, we doing okay. I feed my kids, right? Men and women, I feed my kids. I put clothes on their back. I make sure they go to school. I help them with their homework. But my thing about it is, what have you done to really elevate their mind? What have you done to really put them in a position like, man, this is different. And I think that since we're so mundane in how we parent, when they see something different, I'm talking about our kids, when they see something different, they get so drawn to that. They get so engulfed in that. It's like, okay, well, obviously I have to do whatever everybody else is doing to have fun. Instead of individualizing and saying, you know what, man, my mom or my dad or my dad's friend or my mom's friend, they showed me something that really opened my eyes to the world, that really showed me, I'm bigger than this environment, that I can expand. And that's what happened to me going through those foster homes or whatever. Somebody showed me that I can expand where I am at that present time, or where I was at that present time is not what my life, where it has to end. It's more to it. So that's why I think we get kind of mundane with parenting.
Yeah, you got to look at the different circumstances. Like I keep going back to, what was that person taught when they were up? What were their parents taught? You know what I'm saying? It's a cycle. It's a vicious cycle. And like you said, you made a good point. What are we doing to stop the reality shows that's depicting Black women and men as being filled with drama, alcoholics, always fighting? We're not doing anything to change that because what? It's entertaining. People like to be entertained. If you look on Facebook, the things that go down your timeline, it's a lot of negative stuff. People will share that negative stuff. People will share those
Facts.
fights. But will they share something positive? Are they
No.
looking to understand what message is being displayed, what message is being that people are trying to get across versus, oh, this entertains me, so I'm going to share this because it's funny, not because it's feeding my soul. So this is the norm. So this is what people are going to do.
If you just tuning in right now, as you can see, we're doing this lunchtime debate. We're talking about weak men and weak women. And the captain, you know what I'm saying, she just pretty much brought up a good point in reference to social media, in reference to what we're sharing. Now, my thing about it is this. Everybody has a sense of humor to a certain degree, where someone may feel like their sense of humor may be distasteful. I think adults, we because we've reached adulthood, because we earn our check and we support what we need to support in reference to our kids and ourselves and all that great stuff. I think we allowed to have some distasteful humor from time to time. However, if the majority of the time is distasteful, the majority of the time is petty stuff, the majority of the time is gossip and rumors and all this crap, then that says a lot about your character. You see what I'm saying? If my son or my daughter can't stand here and look over my shoulder, not to be nosy, but they're standing here talking to me, and everything is like, oh, I want to talk about, to be real, let's talk about hoes, let's talk about pimping, let's talk about clubs, let's talk about turn up. You telling them that that's what you involved with, that's what you love.
But do you expect anything different when this is what's being broadcasted, when this is being the depiction, this is what your role model is supposed to be? Do you expect anything different if nothing is being done differently? So where do we change it? How do we fix it?
I expect the individual to be an individual. I expect the individual to be an individual. You understand what I'm saying? You know, I love to pride myself on saying I don't follow the crowd. You understand what I'm saying? And I believe when I say I'm a trendsetter. So with that being said, is I don't have time to follow you because I'm setting my own path. Now, it may be a path that my children decide not to follow, but I'm a damn sure make sure that road is paved out smooth as shit so that way they can follow it. You see what I'm saying? So I don't just push my kids. I push myself. You see what I'm saying? I don't run from a situation. I go to the situation. I try to deal with it the best I can because I want to show them this is how you deal with a situation. It may not always be the right thing to do, but at least I'm trying to do it. So again, I don't think, and it's all based on the people that you got on your timeline too. A lot of people share a lot of positive stuff, a lot of good stuff, you know, and I'm blessed to be one of those people as a recipient of that positive stuff. And if somebody just wilding out, they don't really care, they sharing all types of crazy stuff, I normally just unfollow them. I normally just unfollow them or whatever case, because I don't want to open up my timeline, you know what I'm saying, to a bunch of chaos. You see what I'm saying? So it is what it is though.
And I totally get what you're saying. You said you wanted to make sure that you are leading by example, basically, for your daughters, and which is the same thing that I attempted to do by going to college. Even though this is not what I was shown, for me, this made sense to me. I feel like the only way that I can advance, let me go to college, even though I have 3 kids and I have no help. I'm trying to work. That's how I ended up in the military, working 2 jobs and going to school, and it still wasn't doing anything. I was trying to lead by example, especially with having 2 daughters and a son. But the fact that I have 3 grandchildren, my son has 1, my oldest daughter has 2, sometimes I still have to do a self-reflection on, okay, where did I drop the ball at? You know, I felt like I did everything that I was supposed to do. I don't have a criminal background. You know, I have good credit. I have all of these material things, but there was somewhere I had to have dropped the ball for the cycle to still be repeating itself. And we just had that show. We just had that show about grandparenting. Are we helping or hindering or enabling our children? And I was torn by that because I didn't have the support system, like you said, the people around you, the positive role models. Because I didn't have that, I wanted to make sure that my daughter had that. And because she has her 2 kids, I've quit my job to watch my daughter's children. Am I necessarily happy? I love my grandkids, but am I happy in this situation? I'm used to
Mm,
being independent. I'm used to being self-sufficient. I'm used to being the
mm,
breadwinner in every relationship. So when she gets off from work sometimes, well, I'm gonna go do this, mom, and I'll end up having the kids all day. And so in that
mm.
aspect, she's able to come and go. She's able to finish school. She's able to work. And I feel like I've helped her do that, but it's a double-edged sword.
Okay, so here's
Thank
the
you for
thing. I
that.
appreciate that. Thank you. Here's the thing, Lawanda. You know what I'm saying? I think that, based on what I know about you, um, you're a person that's very passionate about our children, and you definitely want to position them to be successful.
Yeah.
My thing is that I feel like you internalize a lot of things in regards to what have I done wrong? You know what I'm saying? And a lot of times it's not what you've done wrong.
But you
You
know
see what I'm
why?
saying?
Because people will call it, by your definition of what makes somebody weak, that's why people will internalize things, because people will use words such as weak or strength or when they're trying to describe you. So that's why people will internalize, and you have
Well,
to
well,
have
what
accountability and
parent?
responsibility for.
Here's the thing. My main thing with the topic today. My main thing with the topic today, when you start talking about strong men, weak men, strong women, weak women. If you, okay, are a human being, regardless of what gender, and you realize that there is a situation that you are afraid to sit down and have a conversation, have the hard conversation, my friend, you are weak. I don't care whether it's
We
male
don't
or female. I
agree
don't
to
care
disagree
what your
on that one.
education, where you come. That's it. Period. I'm not saying if you can't articulate. I'm not saying if you can't use big words. I'm saying if you are scared to sit at the table and say consciously, no, we got a situation. You see what I'm saying? You may not be the person that come up with solutions, but at least you sat down. At least you walked through the door. You understand what I'm saying? To
But
me,
that
that
still don't
makes you
make them
weak if
weak.
you can't do that.
That just means they don't have the best communication skills. That doesn't make them weak.
No, that not communicate. You know, here's the thing. Sometimes communication goes right, sender receiver, but sometimes it's just sending. Sometimes you just have to sit and listen. You don't have to come up with the solutions.
Still don't make them weak though.
No, 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 no. What makes them weak if they're scared to sit down? That's what I'm
So
trying to tell you. If you know
okay,
that there's a situation and you're not willing to have the conversation, you're not willing to sit down and listen, that's what makes you weak. Not the fact that you can't articulate back and forth, the fact that you're scared to even come in the house and sit down. Meet somebody and sit down. That to me is what makes you weak.
I'll just say you're mentally weak, as far as your social etiquette or your social skills go. I won't say that person, their character is weak. I'll just say they just don't know how to communicate. But again, with it's the words that you choose to use for those different situations. Because even if they weren't scared to sit down with you, what if what you're saying they are not receptive to because it's the way that you're saying it? Does that make them weak because they're not receptive? They're not understanding what you're saying?
Okay. I'm gonna answer
Let's
both of
say
these. I'm gonna answer both of these parts in one synopsis. It doesn't matter what the conversation is about. Let's just
okay.
say it's a hard conversation about anything. It could be about how we gonna bury our mother and talk about the funeral thing. You know what I'm saying? We could
Okay.
so what we decide in reference to what cruise we want to take. It doesn't matter. If you are not willing to come to the table and have a conversation and discuss whatever that hard topic is, listen to me, y'all, then to me, I consider that weak, whether it's a man or a female. That's the problem. When we have disagreements and you can't sit down and have a conversation, you're not trying to get a solution. What you want to do is you want to embellish whatever that bad situation is. So that's why I'm saying I consider that to be weak, because now you're continuing on with a situation that really doesn't have to go past a decent conversation.
See, you with that analogy that you gave, it's multifaceted. For one, if that person doesn't want to sit down and talk about, say, how we're going to bury our loved one, maybe their grieving process is just different. Not that they don't want to speak on it, maybe it's just difficult for them to do that. So we can't use that analogy because that wouldn't make them weak. That just means they're going through a hard time, a tumultuous time right now. What else did you say?
Why can't you use that though? Hold on,
Why
hold on,
would
hold on, hold on.
you're talking about to bury a
Because
loved
you're
one?
grieving, me and you, hold on, me and you, we're trying to bury our father, or whatever case may be, right? You can't deal with it. You so stressed out, but you know that it needs to be done. So is it on me to do it by myself?
The grieving process is different for everybody.
I'm not talking about the grieving process. I'm talking about the conversation that needs to be had because we need to bury our dad.
Okay, for instance, what if?
Go ahead.
I think maybe it's an analogy. Just because the expectation is that you handle the business when it comes to the process of burying your dad or the loved one, you can't say that as weak. Everybody grieves differently. Maybe it's not the right time.
I'm not
maybe
saying you weak
because
you're grieving. I'm saying you weak if you don't have the conversation.
Okay, just because, okay, when you have the conversation, you want to have it when you want to have it, or maybe you should just get with somebody else who can help facilitate the arrangements. It doesn't have to be that person, but you can't say that that person is weak because they have a refusal to have the conversation.
So let me give you this. Let me give you this because I love it. I love it. Here's my thing. You are my sibling. This is our father that died. There is nobody else to have this conversation with, ma'am.
Okay.
It's me and you. So if you decide that you don't want to sit down and have this conversation, guess what? I'm not saying you can say because you're in an agreement process, we can't do this right now. Let's do it next week. We can't do this right now. Let's do it next month. I'm saying if you never sit down to have that conversation, that makes you weak. That's what I'm saying.
Nah, that just means you just not able to do it. I don't see it as
Farissa said, yes, do it yourself. You know what, Farissa? I'm glad my parents ain't died with you, okay? Because I ain't doing it by my goddamn self. How about that? How about that? How about that? Huh?
Yes,
I'm going to come to your house and bury them in your backyard.
Stupid. Yeah, Nisi said you have to have the
You want to play games, Farissa?
You may have to have the conversation, but not everybody can do that. When my brother died, he died at 33. To me, my brother should have been there to help me facilitate the arrangements. My other brother should have been there to help me facilitate the arrangement for our brother, but they were not. My brother was going through his own situation. Do I put that responsibility on him, or do I just let me just handle the business because it has to be handled? In terms of taking care of your kids, we always want to blame that other parent for not doing their part. At the end of the day, that child has to be taken care of. So why am I going to wait on you to do what has to be taken care of? That child still has to eat. That child still has to live. That child still needs to have things. So why am I going to wait on another person to do what has to be done?
You are not what. Okay, here's the thing. To me, you're not removing what I said. You're kind of, and I don't know if that's the nurturing mother in you or whatever case to be. My thing about it is, if a conversation needs to be had and you don't have that conversation, that makes you weak. If you're raising, me and you got a kid, LaWanda, right? And you're taking care of the kid by yourself. And you're coming to me and saying, Mario, I really need your support on this. And I'm ducking and dodging. I'm scared to have a conversation. That makes me a weak man. That makes me a weak man. If the conversation needs to be had, like Nisha said, point blank, and I don't have the conversation and I know it needs to be had, I know I need to come to the table, then I need to have a conversation. Now, it may not be I have the right words. It might just be, I need to be in receiving mode. Then that's just the conversation that needs to be had. But if I don't ever come to the table, then yes, I'm weak. I don't care what excuse I got. Oh, well, I didn't get paid this month. So no, that's my kid too. I had an equal responsibility too. I need to sit down and listen and take responsibility for the action. If our parents died, then I need to sit down and say, oh, I'm grieving. I'm tearing up like a mother. But I'm gonna sit here and listen. I ain't got nothing to give back to y'all in reference to feedback, but I'm just sit here. I'm gonna be here.
But that goes back to coping skills. That goes back to what you have learned. If you didn't learn how to what'd she say? Weak provider, weak parent, no, not overall weak person. But Mara, you are the shit. That's what Hope says. But again, like not everybody has learned those skills. You can't expect that from everybody.
I agree.
even
I
though
agree.
you feel
I
like
agree.
they need to be there and be present, maybe they don't have the
Yeah.
ability to do that for whatever reason. But do we still want to say that they're weak versus they just don't know? And that's why that I don't disagree with what you're saying in terms of weak,
Mhm.
because I may have called somebody weak, especially in terms of a relationship where I said in the very beginning, if you're in a relationship and that person is cheating on you, that person has had multiple children on you and none of them are yours in the whole time you've been married, to me, I would say that man is weak. But then on the flip side of that, I would say maybe that man is ruled by his heart, his emotions.
Mhm.
Maybe he just loved that person. It's not necessarily a weak. It may not be a characteristic that I would prefer for my man to have to allow me to run over him, but that doesn't mean other people are not okay with that. But well, it's the word. Can we use another word in the place of weak?
You
Can we
you
say
you
submissive? Say you say.
you made a good point. And one of the points is a lot of times when we talk about weak men, we talk about women kind of overrunning those men, right? We talk about weak women. We talk about like women being needy and stuff like that or whatever. And we really didn't, between you and I, we really didn't jump into that facet of conversation. We kind of, you know what I'm saying, brung some other things into it, which I'm glad because it kind of obviously made people stay tuned. So I appreciate y'all rocking with us. But we're going to wrap this up because I got some things we got to do. But I'm gonna let the co-captain give her final words on and thoughts on this, and make sure that y'all tune in for Set It Off Sundays or whatever. So,
Set
co-captain,
it
what you
off
got?
Sunday. Listen, and since we're talking about weak versus strong or what makes a man or a woman weak, I do believe that it's in the eye of the beholder. It's the things that you value. Once you determine what you value as far as your morals and ethics and someone being compassion, I think that's where you have to start. Because it's easy to judge somebody, label somebody as being this, that, or the other, but those things that you are, those standards that you want somebody else to have, are you embodying those standards? Are you weak? Do you have a weak mentality? Do you have a weak disposition where you're unable to communicate and able to have those hard conversations? So I think a lot of times you have to do a self-reflection before you can even begin to pass judgment on somebody else.
I
So
like
that's
it.
pretty much.
I like it. I like
And
it.
what?
So before I go, ladies and gentlemen, I just want to leave y'all with this. First of all, again, we appreciate y'all taking the time out y'all busy Monday to rock with us. Hopefully y'all shared. If you commented, I'm pretty sure between myself and the co-captain, we'll go through it and we'll definitely respond to you. But all in all, man, like Wanda said, it's about building relationships and having the hard conversation. A lot of things happen to us as men and women, and we get in our feelings, our egos kind of set the tone for a lot of things. And we don't never get a chance to come to the table and have a conversation. Farissa said something in reference to, you know what I'm saying, why do your needs have to outweigh mine?
Yeah.
I don't think it's a matter of someone's needs outweighing someone. I think that at some point in time, you got to do what's reasonable. You got to do what's reasonable, what makes sense. At the
Compromise.
end of the day, whether it's a weak man or a weak woman, there's a streamline there. There's a streamline called common sense. You all have to reach some type of common sense. And if you can't reach it, hopefully there's a friend in your circle that can help you sit down and look at the situation and say, you know what, man, I think it's best. I'm going to advise you to do X, Y, and Z. So if you don't have good people in your circle or whatever, then get some positive people in your circle.
Get
Again, some positive people in your circle. Ladies and gentlemen, if you don't know what it is, you should know who it is. It's Mr. KT 101.
And I'm LaWanda, aka Neil to the Queen.
And
And
that's
you're
what's up. We out.
that's what's up. Bye.